One of the really cool things of the G1000 is it has a fair amount of automation when you tune the nav radios for the ILS. The main features are it will tune the localizer frequency for you and put it in the active slot. The other main feature is when you switch it from GPS, magenta needles, over to nav, green needles, it will auto-slew the ILS front course on the HSI. Now to show you what we're talking about, let's go to the ILS runway 23 right at Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. We'll zoom in and we'll actually place the aircraft on radar vectors on the right downwind for the ILS to 23 right. Now I want you to see here on the nav radio that we have the Raleigh-Durham VOR 117.2 in the active position on both nav 1 and nav 2. I'm going to hit procedure and I'm actually going to load and activate the approach. Select the approach. I'm going to choose the ILS to runway 23 right. Press enter. I'm going to choose the Preston transition. I'm going to enter in my baro minimums of 610 feet. I'll press enter. And in this case, because I'm already on radar vectors, I'm going to go ahead and activate the approach. I'm going to say yes to the lawyer language. I'm going to press enter. And note on my nav radio, it put the localizer frequency 111.7 in the active slot on both nav 1 and nav 2. The second feature is the auto-slewing of the CDI. So now I'm going to come on in and change the CDI over to nav, and I get the annunciator Loc 1.
So what's happening here is that the G1000 has a database of every localizer in the country. And so when you tune a localizer frequency, it looks up in the database what's the front course for that localizer, and it automatically slews to it. You can see here it slewed to a course of 232. But there's a problem. On the chart, the front course for this localizer is actually 234. So I need to raise an advisory flag. The ILS database can be in error. To make sure that you always get the right course, you need to double check the localizer course the G1000 gives you against the chart.
So in this case here, I'm just going to manually adjust the course to 234. Now that's one issue, but there's another issue, and that is when we load an approach when we're already in green needles. So I'm going to raise the advisory flag right out of the box on this one. Green needles block frequency transfer. Here's the scenario. We're on the ILS to runway 23 right, but air traffic control calls us and says, due to a disabled aircraft, you now need to plan the ILS to runway 23 left. So remember, for the ILS to 23 right, I'm using a localizer frequency of 111.7. The identifier is India Delta Mike Papa with an ILS front course of 234. But for the ILS to 23 left, I now have a new localizer frequency of 108.5. Identifier India Lima Echo India with a new front course that's different of 232. So I'm going to come on in here now and I'm going to load up the ILS to runway 23 left, the new approach. Procedure. Select the approach. The ILS to 23 left. I'm going to press enter. I'm going to choose the DOCAT transition. I'm going to enter in new baro minimums. They're not the same. This approach has got different ones of 650 feet. And then I only get the option to activate the approach. I'll say yes to the lawyer language.
Now look at how the frequencies have been tuned. Our new frequency of 108.5 has been tuned into the nav1 radio, but it has not been transferred into the active position because it was blocked by the current green needles. But on the nav2 radio, you can see that the new frequency has been both tuned and transferred as we would expect.
Now I'm going to leave the frequencies the way they are to let the scenario play out. So now, as I talked about in the Vectors to Final segment, I'm going to enhance my situational awareness by doing a direct course entry on DOCAT. So I highlight DOCAT, I push the direct button, I come on down to the course and I enter in a course of 232 and I press enter. And that's going to give me this nice course to fix inbound to DOCAT. Air traffic control gives me a base leg. And then a heading to intercept the runway 23 left localizer. I arm the localizer by pushing the nav button on the autopilot. I get established on the localizer course. And if we zoom in, we can see I have a bit of a problem here. I'm actually tracking the wrong localizer. The only way you're going to know this is, one, if air traffic control calls you on the radio and says, you've joined the wrong localizer, or two, you happen to notice on your inset map that you're actually paralleling the course inbound to DOCAT. So the fix is easy. I'm simply going to go up to the nav radio and transfer into the active position the correct localizer frequency for 23 left, 108.5. But note when I do that, flashing in reverse video is localizer in amber. That's because I've now reverted into roll mode.
And if you don't notice that, it can really bite you. This is serious enough, I'm going to raise the caution flag. Switching that nav radio can cause your autopilot to decouple. What's happening is the changing of the frequency is causing a momentary interruption of the navigation signal going into the autopilot, and it considers that to be an error, so it reverts to roll mode. Keep your eye on that. If at any point you switch your nav frequencies or switch your CDI, double check your autopilot and make sure you haven't inadvertently put yourself into roll mode.
So if this ever happens to you, here's the procedure. It's really simple. Just go back to the autopilot, put yourself in heading mode, dial up a 30-degree intercept to rejoin the correct localizer, then rearm localizer mode by pushing the nav button. The airplane will turn for the intercept. When localizer mode goes active, I'll call out localizer green. Once I'm established on the course, I like to resync up my heading bug. And at this point, if air traffic control had actually cleared me for the approach, all I have to do is push the approach button to arm the glide slope. Story time. Peter, a couple years ago, was flying a Citation Mustang on the complicated departure out of Aspen, Colorado. And to my astonishment, the airplane flew right through the localizer back course. My student didn't do anything to fix it. It turns out there is a serious bug with the G1000 Autopilot that bites you when you have to manually tune or twist the localizer. So let's show you what happened. Here's the LINS departure. We're going to zoom in and break down the departure in 3 different pieces. So the first piece is fly a heading of 340 to 9,100 feet. Then, upon reaching 9,100, we turn left heading 270. We continue the climb to 16,000, and we intercept the I-Pitkin northwest course outbound to LINS. At LINS, we'll pick up the Victor Airway and track it towards the Junction VOR.
Now, a lot of pilots have a problem with this procedure because of the way I-Pitkin is charted. It looks like the localizer is heading in toward the airport on a course of 120. But if you were to select 120 on your HSI, you would actually get reverse sensing. The correct course to select is what's charted, 300. This procedure is so confusing, it even confused the engineers who built the localizer database. Let's show you.
So here we are on the ground at Aspen. We're at runway 33. We go to the flight plan. We hit procedure, select departure. We choose the LINS departure, press enter. We're going to scroll down the list and we're going to choose the junction transition for the Junction VOR at Grand Junction, Colorado. Press enter to load it. LINS 5, runway 33, junction. I'm happy with that. Now I press enter. I'll turn my FMS cursor off. I'm going to go up to the nav radios. I'm going to tune the I-Pitkin localizer, 108.5. I'm going to transfer it into the active slot. There it is. You can see it identified. And I'm going to change the CDI over to Loc 1. Now note, it auto-slewed the incorrect course of 120. That's the reciprocal. I figured, well, no problem. I'll just go to my course knob and manually slew the correct course of 300. I figured, well, that's definitely got to fix it, right? So here I'll get the 300 course set on my HSI. And I figured I'm good to go. Now we'll jump ahead and actually fly the departure. So here we are coming through 8,900 feet. Upon reaching 9,100, we turn left heading 270. I keep turning the heading bug. And once I get the heading bug set to 270, I go to the autopilot and I push nav to arm the localizer. I call out localizer armed. Now we'll jump ahead. I'm established on the 270 heading, waiting for the localizer course to come in. Localizer alive. I'm expecting to see the annunciator localizer green. But the localizer course is not capturing. Here's where we finally see the bug with the GFC 700. Because I manually slewed the iPick and localizer course, the plane flies through and heads into the mountainous terrain. Now there is a fix for that. All I'm simply going to do when I recognize that it's not tracking the localizer, I'll take the heading bug and give it, let's say, a 30-degree intercept to get the plane back established on the localizer course. So I'm turning the heading bug to, let's say, about 330 here, somewhere in the area. I want about a nice 30-degree intercept. The plane is turning back in for the re-intercept. I'm continuing that climb to 16,000. And I'm waiting for the localizer to come back in. Here it is, localizer alive. And now that the localizer is coming back in, to track it outbound, I just simply turn the heading bug to the head of the needle, and I'll track the localizer using heading.
You know, I had something similar happen to me. We were flying into Eugene, and they had changed the localizer frequency the previous day. So when we tried to intercept that new localizer, the autopilot actually turned the wrong way. Since we saw this twice in 1 month, we are raising the warning flag. Any manual changes to a localizer course that's in the database will break the GFC 700 localizer mode. And Garmin did publish a service advisory describing this problem, and it basically says that the GFC 700 will not capture, track, or give flight director commands for any manually selected course. Fortunately, though, Garmin has identified and fixed the problem, and it should no longer be an issue if you have GDU software 10.00 or later.
So we do have a pro tip, and that pro tip is, if coupling is not available, use the manual autopilot technique. And that technique looks something like, first, you stay in heading mode, then you set your altitude pre-select to the decision altitude, you track the localizer course using heading mode. And then if you need to descend on the glide slope, simply use vertical speed. Remember, a sophisticated autopilot is an awesome tool to have.
But never fully trust it to do the right thing.